Welcome back, psychologically minded humans. Today we're going to be talking about masking as it relates to autism spectrum disorder. We should first define what masking is. The term masking refers to a set of behaviors that people with autism will do to kind of fit in. It masks their symptoms of autism. An example would be an adult who has some sensory integration issues. Maybe lights seem brighter, flavors, tastes seem more intense, and noises, a lot of times it's with the noise. And perhaps the adult with autism that is sensitive to noise would just try to restrain their reaction if something was loud because they know that it would appear odd or strange. Suppose there's a kid who does these stimming behaviors, licking their hands or smelling things, and they kind of know that they get bullied or teased for it and they don't want that, so they have to resist the urge. Someone else with autism might not be following the conversation the same way as other people. They're not picking up on the social cues, but they nod and go along and kind of respond the way that they see the other people responding, even though they're not quite getting it. Or let's say you got a teenager with autism and they're attracted to somebody, and so they come up with sort of a script, or they're already preparing exactly what they're going to say instead of just being able to engage in the conversation naturally. Now, I should point out that if you do any of these things, it doesn't necessarily mean you have autism spectrum disorder. I think in general, people mask all the time. You're always trying to fit in. You may withhold urges. You may pretend something so that you fit in socially. And it's common among anybody, but people with autism are doing it deliberately and much more often, and it's a lot more effortful because they're having to do it so frequently. I get a lot of comments, even in videos where I'm talking specifically about the symptoms that are listed in the diagnostic manual that define the disorder. There'll be a lot of comments from people saying that they don't do these things because they know how to mask it. And so I would love a community here where people are discussing some of this. If you have experience with masking, or you know someone who has had experience with masking, please leave a comment below and maybe people will respond and we can get a friendly discourse going. Also, while you're down there, you can click like, maybe subscribe. That would be great too. So a person who's masking, what's their goal? Their goal is to fit in, to be accepted, maybe to avoid bullying. And in fact, some therapeutic approaches, if you're familiar with ABA therapy, where a person is rewarded, reinforced for pro-social behaviors, they're actually being trained in using masking behaviors to avoid the problems that come from not fitting in, to gain the benefits you get from fitting in and acting the way everybody else is in a social situation. We wouldn't use masking as a way to identify who has autism spectrum disorder. We're talking about people who have already been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, and we're talking about one of the problems that goes along with it, or one of the difficulties. Research has shown that there are some groups of people with autism spectrum disorder that are more prone to do masking. Who are these people? You got teenagers. You got people on the more mild end of the autism spectrum because they're actually more aware. They're not as naive or unknowing of the benefits of fitting in or even being able to do the masking. You got to have more of a light version of autism spectrum disorder. Research has shown that females are more likely to be better at and able and be aware of the idea of masking and to pull it off. You got adolescents and young adults. Why? Think about it. That's the period of time where socially fitting in is probably one of the most important aspects of life. People who have been bullied or have experienced social rejection, they're the ones who are really going to want to do this and probably make more effort to do masking. If you've got someone with autism spectrum disorder striving for a particular goal, they're trying to get into a certain club, they're trying to get a prom date, they're trying to fit in so that they can get invited to a party. And it can actually work. You know, it does get them invited more. It does help them not do the socially inappropriate or the socially off-putting behaviors that they might have the urge to do, but they're able to mask it and not give in to the urge. So what's the downside of masking? Why not just promote it? Come on, everybody with autism, mask away. Well, you do get some benefits for sure, and I wouldn't dissuade people from doing it, but there are some problems to it. You get burnt out. It's a constant pretending to act in a way that you're not really authentic. The result of masking for so long in a lot of people does seem to result in depression. It can also delay or inhibit a proper diagnosis. There's a lot of benefits to knowing what it is and giving it a name and working on it, getting some of the benefits associated with any kind of problem that you have, and you acknowledge it. But if you're masking all the time and you're good at it, it may delay the benefits of actually knowing what you have. So how do you help people who are hiding their autism? Well, Henry Ford Health says that it can be difficult to know how to support someone who's cracking under the strain of trying to adapt to a world that isn't set up for their way of thinking. And just to reiterate something I alluded to before, masking is not specific to autism spectrum disorder. People with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder may mask some of their symptoms to try to fit in, pretend that they know what the conversation is, pretend that they heard something that somebody said, making up little fibs to cover up some of the errors that they made. People with sensory processing disorder, people with learning disabilities, or even just somebody with anxiety, or even the average person can do masking some of the time. I just wanted to point that out because I don't want people to think, oh, sometimes I prepare a script before talking to somebody that I'm trying to get a date with, and so maybe I'm autistic. I don't want people to jump to the conclusion that they must have autism because they also do masking sometimes. So what can you do to help? If you have somebody that you care about that has ASD, you want to be supportive. You want to let them know that they can be themselves and that they're not going to get ridiculed or criticized, at least when they're with you. And in those moments, they can stop with the masking. You want to make them feel that they are worthy and that they're cared about and that they're accepted, even if they're showing some autistic tendencies. Another one would be not to take outbursts personally. If your child or your spouse or your friend, they are around you and they seem irritable, they come home and they're a little bit volatile, maybe they're anxious, remember, it's not necessarily about you. It may be that they're just coming home after a full day of the mental effort done to do all the masking and hold it all together all day. Now, this might seem counterintuitive, but sometimes helping somebody you care about do a little masking. Maybe you could help them prepare a social script or remind them of what they could do so that they don't have to either feel guilty about it or feel bad about it or put in as much effort to pull it off. I hope this has been helpful. Again, like I said, leave a comment below, get into a little discourse about this with other people, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, take it easy, and remember, psychology works.